Welcome to On the Brink, a fresh lens to take you and your business to new heights. I'm Andi Simon, and as you know, I'm your host and your guide. And I love doing podcasts so that you can see, feel, and think in new ways. Why is that important? Well, these are very fast changing times. And regardless of who you are or where you are, something is pushing against you a little bit. You're not quite sure, do I like it? Don't I like it? Most humans hate change. It creates pain in the brain, but it's time to change. And the sooner you make change your friend, the more happy you're going to be. My job is to get you off the brink. So today, I have an amazing woman here. Gemma Toner is a fabulous woman. She's part of our book, Women Mean Business. You can see it behind us, and I'm going to show you her picture. And it is beautiful, but so is she. This book has 102 women in it, and each of them provide 5 wisdoms. And what I love doing is sharing their wisdoms on the podcast, because sometimes it comes alive even better. Gemma, thank you for being with me today. You're smiling. I love it.
I am so grateful to be here. Thank you.
Let me tell you a little bit.
And I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm a huge fan of yours as an anthropologist.
Gemma and I are going to have some great lunches after our podcast time. First, we have to get through our podcast. Let me tell you about her so that you, our viewers and our listeners, know why you should listen up, because it's important. Gemma Toner is a media and telecommunications leader known for driving innovation. In 2017, she created Tone Networks, and we're going to talk about Tone today, a SaaS micro-learning platform designed for early to mid-career women. Although as I looked at them, I think it's for all women to stay in advance in the workplace. She's been a board member of publicly traded companies, including Sandvine and Engagement Labs, chairperson for CTAM, and a board member of multiple women's organizations. Before founding Tone, Gemma held executive positions in media and technology for AMC and Cablevision Media, running the fastest ISP in the country. We're going to hear more about that in a moment. And she's been granted patents for data analytics, and she proudly serves the global humanitarian organization Concern Worldwide. Don't you love that bio? Gemma, share with our audience. I think this is a wonderful time. McKinsey had that great article in February of 2023 about the great breakup. So here you're going to hear about Gemma in the corporate world, and then founding a new company to help women do even better. And this is something that is extremely important to me and to her. Tell us about your journey. How did you get into corporate? What was it like? And then breakout. Your turn, please.
All right, let me tell you about my journey, because it is not one that people immediately think or hear. And that is that, I think of myself as, a mother and a wife and a business person, a technologist, and I'm a data geek, but I'm also an immigrant. And that's important because it's such a strong part of my identity. And it's also kind of driven me throughout my whole life. And so you ask how I got into corporate. Well, I'll tell you, my parents immigrated from Northern Ireland, and I was about 4 or 6 months old when I got here. And when you're an immigrant, and this was back in the 60s, your family actually become your friends. And at least for our family, we were packed up every summer and spent time with all our family that my parents had left back in Ireland. So I had this kind of bifurcated life, which sometimes I didn't always appreciate. You asked me again how I got into corporate. Well, I kind of looked at my dad and saw what he accomplished. And I was the oldest in a family of 3 girls. And I thought, well, I've got to do better, because he came here literally with nothing. He had very little money, very little education, but he had the dream that, the American dream was possible. And you know what it really was for him? And he became wildly successful here in the United States. So I had some big shoes to fill. Now, my dad didn't go to college. So the first step for me to get to corporate America was actually to get to college. And so I did. I got into Villanova and had a great experience there, ended up studying accounting. Why wasn't necessarily the most strategic. I happened to be really good at it. And I happened to also be one of the few women in the room, and I didn't mind that. So it was a great school, a great experience. And I popped into corporate America. And my first job was at a great company called what's now called Ernst and Young. And I got to spend a lot of time at Time Inc. And again, this was again for this immigrant girl. This was corporate America was not something I grew up with. I did not know about mentors or sponsors. I didn't even know that those names or terms existed. I certainly didn't know anything about networking. But what I did know was that, keep your head down and work really hard. So I got to see, corporate America, kind of in its heyday. And especially when you're working for those type of firms, you actually get to see the world at a pretty high level, which even though you might be doing pretty mundane things as a low, entry level employee. But what it turned me on to, and I'm very grateful for, was I got to really learn about the media business. And I realized pretty quickly that, hey, this is actually where I want to be. And so I came home to my father, who, had worked so hard and given us so much opportunity, and said, Dad, I really don't like this accounting thing very much. I think I want to try something else. And he said, Gemma, you can do anything. And he didn't make me feel bad that I had just spent 4 years studying accounting, which is a great degree. I highly recommend it. Working at, Ernst and Young was great experience. But it was time for me to make a jump. And you'll hear often in my career, I kind of jump off cliffs
Mhm.
and eventually fly. It doesn't always go seamlessly, but it happens. And so I jumped. And so I was able to actually, it wasn't easy to have a media company hire an accountant, because certainly they didn't think I had a marketing background, and I didn't, but I was entry level. And so it was a great time to kind of jump in and make a career switch. So I was fortunate enough, I actually started out at a company called Rainbow Advertising. So I got to see the world of advertising. And then I landed this fantastic job working for a woman. Her name is Katie McEnroe at AMC Networks. And that was where I had that first moment of, I see her, I want to be her.
Ah,
And she was the president of this network. We were in heavy distribution and marketing mode, and it was run by Josh Sapen at the time, another fantastic human being to work for, and it was probably one of the best experiences I could ever have. I got to see so much, I got to do so much. We were all so supportive of each other. We were very aggressive, but in an okay way. And at a time in the telecommunications industry where it was really a bonanza of creativity and technology and distribution. It was just all these new things were coming out. And so from there, so that was sort of how I landed in corporate. And then towards the end of my time at AMC Networks, I got really fascinated with this thing. I'm going to date myself a bit, called new media, which is now what you would call digital. And I was always a bit of a geek, and I love computers and machines and things like that. And so I was able to persuade my boss at the time to create a new job, which was this, how do we create content for this new medium, the internet? And more importantly, it wasn't just about the internet, because this was again, where you had dial-up. It was really about this next thing that was coming, which was high-speed data, which most people didn't even know the name of, right? Um, and so I got to create content. We made a lot of mistakes, learned very early on that the programming and the content had to be really short. And this was way back, like in 2000, we knew it needed to be short. So we made a lot of mistakes along the way, but it was a great ride. And I share that because that transitioned me to yet my next gig, which was I got asked to interview for this job working at a company here in New York called Cablevision, to run this fledgling product called Optimum Online. And at the time, it was, that had a lot of optimism, and the CEO of Cablevision and president wanted someone that had a really good branding background. And if there's anything AMC Networks can do, it really teaches you, how to brand and how important it is, and to understand your audience, and all of that will follow through as we talk about tone networks. So anyway, I was fortunate enough to land the job. And at the time, I'll just say, so for anyone that ever has had this experience, I landed the job, I got married, and then ended up becoming pregnant all within like 3 months. So I thought to myself, what in the world have I just done to myself? But I did it. So I jumped again, into a big cliff or off a big cliff. And it was probably the hardest job I've ever had. It was now I was working at a cable company, it was heavy in the technology space. We were also in a place where people didn't know what high-speed access was. And they kind of liked that old dial-up sound. So it was quite a challenge. But it was really the beginning of a fantastic career journey at this cable company, because not only did I get to be a part of launching and building that product, but I also got to be a part of launching other new technologies at the company, namely Optimum Voice. I got to be a part of that team, as well as Optimum Wi-Fi. And then again, at Cablevision, it was a very entrepreneurial, even though we were a publicly traded company, great visionaries at the top, and mentors, quite honestly. And there was always I got picked, and I will say I got picked to solve a problem. And the problem was, here we were, this company that had all of this data. And this was, again, early, before it was called AI and before it was even called big data. And what could we do with it? How could we monetize it? How could we make products? And so I got to do something that I never in my wildest dreams imagined I would do, which was to run this data analytics team. And they were brilliant. And, again, it really speaks to, you may not have to know how to do it. You just need to know how to lead and have some vision, because truly, and Andy, you and I were talking, one of my main criteria was I needed a social anthropologist. We needed to understand what all this data and behavioral data meant, but we had data scientists. I mean, it was just an extraordinary time. And we ended up creating new products. We ended up getting some patents. And so that was really my life in corporate America. And it was a wild ride. It was not easy. I want to be really clear. I think so many people, come on podcasts or do media and interviews, and they don't share that it was hard. It was really hard. I cried a lot. I want to be honest. I cried myself to work some days, with the pressure and just, everything that was coming at me. But, I think one of my mentors always said, keep going. And I think that is something that I want everyone to remember. Just keep going through it. You'll get through it. And so I stuck with it. And, I had this great opportunity. And then I had something very personal happen. And that was a very good friend of mine who I had watched struggle with colon cancer for 5 years, passed away. And I went into the office after she had died, and I watched her fight day in and day out for another day with her boys. And I went in, and I had this great gig. I got picked for the really cool stuff. It was the hard stuff, but I love the hard stuff. I had an executive coach. I got to go to Stanford. I lived 20 minutes from my home. You couldn't have asked for a better dream job. But I walked in, and I was like, I'm done. And I didn't know. It was very emotional, so I wouldn't say go do this, but I did. So I'm just being honest and vulnerable. But I came home that day and I spoke to my husband and I said, I don't know what it is, but it's just not this anymore. And so I retired. And when you retire, when you're kind of at the top of your game and you have a really great gig, people look at you funny. So again, I will let you know that people are like, why are you leaving right now? Here you are, a woman. Big data is just, you're at the top of it. You're in early. And, it didn't make a lot of sense. But what I knew inside was that I needed something different. And that's all I knew. I did not have a strategic plan. So I recommend others have a strategic plan. Mine was a very emotional decision. But I also needed to take a break. And so what I did was, having had an executive coach, which is truly life-changing and transformative, I knew enough about myself and my own neurosis and my A type that I am, that I might squander this gift that I had given myself, which was, what I thought was retirement. And I thought, I need to have my executive coach help me through this, because the last thing I want to do, I've worked since, for as long as I can remember, was lose this time worrying about what's next and
Mm.
not use it well. And so we had monthly meetings, and she really helped me keep on that path of take this time for yourself, rediscover yourself. I also had a girlfriend give me a book, which I highly recommend. And Brene Brown, if you're listening, I want to be your best friend, which is Daring Greatly.
Yes.
And it was really about vulnerability. And that really resonated with me because, I did not grow up in an environment where I felt I could be vulnerable.
Mm.
And certainly, making vulnerability equate with courage, really spoke to me. It really sung to me. And so during my retirement, I got asked to be on those boards, which was fantastic. And I have another story, which will take way too long, but it is about saying no. So we'll save that for the next podcast. But that was about how I ended up getting on those boards and how that snowballed, which was fantastic. And then I also, during my, I guess you would call it a sabbatical, I got asked to serve, to interview actually on the board for the board of Concern Worldwide, and I hadn't heard of it. They were looking for someone with a data analytics and marketing background, so I just happened to get lucky and interview for that position, and I thought this was it for me, Andi. I thought this is it. I want to give back. I need something more. I've done the corporate America
Mhm.
thing. Uh, and I thought, okay, thank you, God, here it is. And so that's how I proceeded. Now, as being a board member, I was supposed to go to Haiti and go on a trip. And at the time, Haiti became too unstable for us to go. And so that trip was canceled, and I got to speak at a women's leadership conference because I was able to say yes to that. And I was very vulnerable. I didn't know what I was doing. It was for women in cable and telecommunications. And Maria Brennan, who was the CEO, called me and said, "You need to talk about career pivots at the senior leadership conference." I was like, Maria, I'm in a personal pivot. Why would anyone want to hear from me? She's like, "That's exactly why you have to." So I think Brene Brown is playing in my head. And I think, okay, I gotta be brave, gotta be courageous. And so I go. And what blows my mind is, this is a senior leadership conference in an industry where there's a lot of access to learning and great organizations that deliver education. And I was like, why are these women, some of them I know, why are they here to talk, to listen to what I have to say?
Mhm.
So I said what here's how I did it. And I was retired, right? So I had some headspace, and I'm walking back to get the train home. And I thought, I'm no different than all those women that were in that room. So
Mhm.
what was it that made me able to make the jumps that I did? And all these super talented women are struggling. And I thought, I had access. And what does that mean? Access. That means, for better or worse, somehow, because I didn't know what a mentor sponsor was, I got access to a mentors. I got access to role models. I got access to sponsors. I got that executive coach. And all of those things are scarce resources,
Mhm.
right? At the end of the day, there's not enough of them, right?
Mhm.
Not everybody gets that. I understand the economics of executive coaching. It's really expensive. And so I started to think about, what can I do about this? And I was like, hang on, I know how to build software. I know content. I know data analytics. Wait a second. And so then I just started grokking on what could this be? And there you have it. So that was a very long-winded
Yeah.
story of my drift from getting into being an immigrant, getting into corporate America, and then actually starting to create the idea of what a company could be.
But I mean, remember, our job is to help people get off the brink. And you are an extraordinary role model because, in many ways, it wasn't as if you had a destination. You were
Yeah.
curious. And that curiosity and trust in yourself, you can call it vulnerability, but that's a word that often doesn't mean anything. It's just a cool word. You're supposed to be vulnerable. Well, what does that really mean? But what you found was that if you trusted your own feelings, calm instincts, you made some good decisions. Doesn't sound like you had many detours along the way, but you might have.
Oh, I did.
Yes, I know. We don't talk about it much.
Again, I want to be honest. I made lots of mistakes. Those were the highlights. Everybody makes mistakes. And so, again, I just like to be practical and honest. If you're not out there swinging and you're going to miss a lot, you're not going to get some of those peaks, right?
Yep.
And I think that's really important for us to communicate because none of this is all hard won.
Well, and there isn't as if there are a bunch of, I love serendipity. You're talking about chance. It could have been luck, yes, but life is a series of showing up. People say, "How did you grow your business?" I said, "I showed up." Because who knows what's going to happen in the elevator when you meet Renee Mabon and she becomes a blue ocean strategist. I mean, the conversations are trusting that there's some magic here that's going to be, I don't know, magical. And so you have moved along without saying, I need to go help women, but you had an experience. And I want to emphasize that to our listeners. There was something experiential that said, ooh, what is it I could help those women do? Because they need to see things through a fresh lens, and have the trust that this is, why do they feel the way they do? Why don't you begin to, what's your next story? Talk to us about tone networks, because I am intrigued by how we can help women become the best they can be. I like men too, but
Gotcha. Yes, yes.
I really, and it doesn't matter whether you're a guy or a gal. I've coached both. I have many of them as clients, but they all come, and the brain hates change. It creates cortisol that says this hurts. Help me do it. Okay, how am I going to help you do this? Because you need to do it. We need to figure out a way for you to see yourself in a new fashion, try some new things. So tone networks is, and I'm not even sure how to understand the name of it, because it's not physical. It's not toning you up, but it is toning you up. So I'm curious. Your curiosity, out of it came this platform that is helping people, women in particular, become the best they can be. Share with us. How'd you
Yeah.
see it? How'd you create it?
It's so funny,
Of all your stuff.
it really is. Everything that I learned throughout with that long-winded story I just shared with you really is used in the creation of this business. And
Yes.
so the data geek in me, how do you start a company? Again, I came from corporate, which, I'd started lots of new products. And so I knew my process, right? Which isn't necessarily how most startups
Right.
startup, right? So I was starting up as someone with corporate experience. So I don't know that I did it the right way, but I did it my way.
Yep.
And my way was to, start to really understand what women, what the challenges were. I didn't want to just trust my own self. And so we went out and did research. And we did primary research. We did a national study. And we asked questions like, what stands in the way of your personal and professional development?
Hmm.
Because long before the pandemic, shone a light on the challenges that women have. I was a firm believer in my personal life did not get left at the threshold of my office door. That my personal and professional life were deeply intertwined, and the technology was going to make it even deeper. And so, if we were going to solve and try to help women, I think we had to acknowledge that you didn't have clear boundaries, and that an example would be, I'm just about to go into a meeting, and my daughter would text me, Mom, I need, but I mean, it happens to everyone, right? And whether it's a child or a parent or whatever, the gift of technology is we're more connected. It also interrupts us, right, in some ways. So that's what we really looked to solve. And what we did tons of research, and I love research. So again, this is the geeky part of me. And what it bubbled up to were a couple of things. And it was when you asked women, all different ages, quite honestly, not just early to mid, all different types of women at different types of business categories. And it was this time. And time meant form factor. I don't have time to do sort of traditional learning.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Access was make it for me. I don't have time to go searching for everything. And I just make it that I can, it's just for me, make it feel like it's just for me. And then the last, which is sort of the saddest, but it's a reality, it was confidence. And tucked under confidence was permission. And that whether we like it or not, the majority of women that were part of this study, and it was a statistically significant study, were like, I need permission to take care of me. And I'm like, okay, so if that's what we need to do, then let's figure out how we can do this. And so that was really the beginning, and that became the pillars of Tone Networks. And so what Tone sets out to do is use micro learning. I am not a learning and development specialist, but I know what it is to build products and content that engage audiences. And so that's really how we've created this learning tool. We've created it more like you would create a media experience, right? Than an education experience, right? We have no textbooks, right? Because what we're really looking to be is your TikTok for your personal and professional development.
Yep.
So instead of going into that death scroll of Instagram or Snapchat or whatever, you know what? You can just jump on Tone and do something good for yourself and really enrich yourself. And so that's really our goal. And that's how we make impact. And what's really cool is we use technology to make it very personalized. So we ask you what you're interested in. The last thing I want to do is waste your time because I know how precious it is because I've been there. And I do not want to serve you things that you're not interested in. So if you are not a working parent, a working mom, we're not going to send you progressive parenting videos because that's not respectful. We need to be respectful of your time so that if you only have 3 or 5 minutes today, because honestly, you just can't breathe, you can't catch a break, it's okay. We've got you. And so that's really how we developed the product. But we also developed it knowing, and Andy, again, I know you're expert in this, behavioral change. And how does, the nudge theory of behavioral change, right? So we've listened to women and they say, make it for me, make it easy. Give me a 1, 2, 3. Because the last thing I want to do is write an essay or get homework. I have my to-do list is long enough. And so what we did was we made these really short form videos. We also, at the end of every video, we have your tone takeaways, which is kind of your 1, 2, 3. The system actually sends you positive reinforcement the next morning and says, thank you for watching. Here are your tone takeaways. Why? Not because I'm being polite, but I am a very polite person, but because I want to remind you, you did something good for yourself. And here you go. You can recall, you can pull, like we work with neuroscientists as well. You can pull that information out and recall it. And you know what? Maybe you can take that first step, or maybe you'll just watch it again. That's okay. Change is hard. I'm so with you when you say that, right? It is so hard. So that's part of the way the product works for the end user. Because today we were designed, and when I got funding, we were designed to be both a consumer platform and a B2B platform. Right now, we're working on the B2B front, but trust me, I want all women to get access to this, whether you're in corporate America or not. But today that's where we are. And so what we can also do is help inform our business partners, the companies we work with a new data set. But that data set, and this comes back to, my data geek days, is anonymized, right? Why is it anonymized? Because if you won't watch My Boss is a Narcissist, if you know that your company is tracking you, and you know what, if you have a boss that's a narcissist, you should know how to handle that. And I'm okay with that. And, if you don't have a boss, you have someone in your life. Everyone's got a narcissist somewhere, right? I mean, it's just an upward trend in our society. But the game plan here is to add value and new insights and to really be a contender. We are not looking to be your typical learning and development platform. There's plenty of companies out there doing that. We're really looking to deliver the knowledge that you get from having access to executive coaches and experts, the really good stuff that you get deeper in your career. Well, why shouldn't women have that earlier? Because my goodness, it really is life-changing. And so that's really how we set out to do it. It was really listening to the audience. Talk about mistakes. We made a lot of mistakes. It took us a long time to get the format right, to get the tone right. Um, but we're in a good place now. And I have to brag a little. We do have an NPS of 66, which is pretty darn amazing for such a young company. So just saying.
Well, you better explain what an NPS is.
Net promoter score. And so that's when you just a simple question, would you
Would you
refer
prefer?
a
Yeah.
friend? Yeah, would you refer a friend or family member to this? And the good news is that uh, a majority, and that's a really hard number to get, is people are saying, yeah, I would. So, and we have 95% of our business clients renewing. So we know we're hitting it. And I think we're hitting it because, again, women don't have much time and we have to really redesign and re-engineer, how we run our lives
Yeah.
and, how we learn.
Gemma, I'm listening and smiling because even I share many of the same purposes and passions of wanting to take what we know and multiply it so others can rise with it. What Sandra Quinn says, as I climb the ladder, I lift other women with us. And I said, what a beautiful way of talking about what all of us are really interested in doing, not simply being acknowledged for accomplishments as you were and staying there, but thinking, your sabbatical was a growth period for you, but it didn't stay there. It wasn't just me on boards. It was, what have I learned that I can now share and multiply joyfully so that I can lift others? And that is not inconsequential, because if you kept it to yourself, nice, but now how many more others? And yeah, you can go speak, but when I walk out of the room at the end of a gig, as I know, I want them to do one small win, do an Oprah, one small win to lead you forward. Well, what win will that be? How will I change? And it is purposeful and passionate, but you're also having a good time, aren't you?
I am. And I have to also credit my mom and dad for, again, being immigrants and coming here with, not much in their pockets. I think what they instilled in us was, and I saw it, there were so many people that helped them along the way. And what I recognized, and again, I didn't know the terms, right? But the people that I would say helped me along the way, those mentors and sponsors, I don't forget them. And what I recognized when I had a moment to think and take a beat was that not everybody gets that. And so that's where, when I think about, my father would always say, never forget where you came from, always put out a helping hand. And that's the truth. And so I think, it does, for me, it matters my humble beginnings
Yeah.
and being able to, fulfill, and help more because, we live in this country and we've been really fortunate. So to me, that means, give back.
I
But
couldn't.
I'm also, let me clarify, I'm a capitalist. This is not a nonprofit business. I believe in capitalism, and I also believe capitalism is probably the most effective way to create social change and upward mobility for women.
Well,
That's why I'm doing this.
you don't have to justify yourself, and you are.
No, but it's just, I think it's really important because someone was like, oh, is this a nonprofit? I'm like, no,
No.
we're not.
No, I met
We're
someone
not.
today who's trying to change the way kids understand debt, and it's not a not-for-profit. She's finally made herself a for-profit, and I said that's good. It's okay to make money, and to spread. It's okay to remove the guilt factor, because I'm in here for some profit, and I don't quite know why we've given that such a bad name. But I do think there's something else about you as a woman leading others. And people ask me, do women lead differently? And I said, well, I've had enough. I've had dozens of clients, and I was in corporate life for a long time. And are women different than men? Yes. But do people, leaders need followers. And they don't follow people casually. They follow people they trust, who can get them someplace together, and who they believe are authentic and want to be accountable to. Do you find you've had some good women bosses and men bosses. And do they think that women are leading differently, or are we just women? I mean, it's
I,
a hard
I
question
think
to
it, I think it depends, and I think it's men, women. I think it really depends on the individuals. There's some
Mhm.
great male leaders. There's some great women leaders.
Yes.
There's also both not so great. So do I think I led differently? Probably not early in my career. I would say I probably, just like the female role models that I was emulating, they were leading like men, and so was I. I would say as I became more comfortable as a leader, I definitely had a different approach. I actually sometimes early in my career, when I was running a region, when I see my old team, I apologize to them and I'm like, thank you for still being my friend, because I was really rough around the edges as a young leader. And you kind of grow into, at least I did, grow into the way you want to lead.
Well, and I do think that the value you brought to everyone along the entire way was your curiosity. This kind of openness to see things through. You wanted to bring a social anthropologist on because we know that out of context data do not exist. What does all this data mean? Well, it can mean anything I want it to mean. So which data do I
Mhm.
pick up to do what? And then how do I interpret it right so that it makes the story that makes the most sense? So it's really interesting. I think you and I could talk a great deal for a lot of reasons, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. Thank you for sharing with us today. For our audience, one or two or three things you don't want them to forget, what would be some real good takeaways?
Oh my goodness. I have to say the takeaways, as much as I was long-winded, is, don't forget where you came from,
Mm.
always be looking back. I also think some of the takeaways that I had in the book really are important to me, and that is, get out there and just start.
Yep.
Raise your hand. Even though I can't tell you, most of the big opportunities I had, I was not the first choice, and that's okay. It's okay to be the consolation prize because it's what you make of it. And they were great opportunities. It really is. And I mean, two of my big opportunities, I was not the first choice, but I hung in there, and I didn't have all the all the skills they wanted, but last man standing, I got it.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important because so many of us just are like, oh no, that's over my head. No, it's not. Give it a go.
Yeah.
And I think the other is, just keep going. It's
Yeah.
hard. Let's not kid ourselves, and let's not mislead each other with, sort of saying, oh, it's all perfect. It's not. But you will get through it. And I think what's really important about that is, and it does take a little time, and I didn't always do this myself, so I want to be really honest about that, is finding people that are like you that can support you.
Yep.
Okay. So it's having that personal board of directors. It's also having a few friends, few friendly faces that can help you when you're just having a really tough day and can also celebrate with you as well.
Well, we're people and we need others. And they need to be trusting and trustworthy. And trusting is important, that we have folks we can turn to. And can I just vent? It's not an uncommon call I make to my favorite friend. Can I just vent? And then by the time I'm done, she said, "Do you feel better?" I said, "Oh, that was perfect. I just need a safe heart." And and even I'm an executive coach, but even there, sometimes you just go talk to your friend, let it come out. We had an ERG presentation the other day for Eightfold, a company out on the West Coast, a software designing company, really cool folks. One of the women said, do women really have to check off all the boxes before they can move up? And all of us, there were three of us, said, that's not how you're going to move up. The move up really comes when you really don't know what you don't know, because you can't possibly ever have all the boxes checked. Believe in yourself and offer yourself as a smart person who can grow. And those are better words than "am I ready?" You're never ready. And,
You're never ready.
you're never ready. I
You're
became
never ready. And I like to
you
remind my team, we'll figure it out.
yes, we'll
Figure
figure
it
it out.
out. Have the
And that's
confidence to say
right.
that.
a complex problem to what
figure
you
it
want
out.
to solve. That's exactly right. Which is
I'll figure it out. And just know you don't have to figure it out by yourself. You can ask a lot of people to help you.
yes, and it won't ever be exactly right. Perfection is really necessary. And so all kinds of wisdoms. This is such fun. So let me wrap up. I do want to thank
It's fun.
it is fun. And the National Association of Women Business Owners, who owns the trademark on Women Mean Business. And we always like to recognize them and thank them for the use of their title for our book, Women Mean Business. Over 500 insights from extraordinary leaders to spark your success. And as you can hear, Gemma Toner is one of those extraordinary leaders. And our conversation today was to help you spark your success. Get off the brink. Get on. Keep going. Be perfect. The books are all on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. My 3 books are there, having fun, and I hope you have fun with them. I actually had somebody shoot a picture of one of my books on the beach when he was reading it. I went, oh my gosh, a beach read. I didn't know I had a beach read. He said, oh, it really think through. So, and I can't thank
Andi, can I plug one event
Sure.
that we have coming up it's going to be in March. It's a pay equity event that's free for all women. So all of your listeners and men are welcome.
Oh.
And it really will be, check out, look on LinkedIn. We'll be promoting it everywhere. It's really about getting women, particularly equitable pay. And this will not be about talking about the stats. This will actually be practical tips as to how do you make sure you are getting paid fairly.
Perfect.
So that's, mark your calendar in March.
Sometime in March, though. We have to come back to tone.
Sometime in March. It'll be on the day. Yeah, it's actually, we're just waiting to get the actual date, March 15th, something like that. It's on Pay Equity Day. But it's something, again, you talk about purpose. It's very important to us.
Despite the fact that Barack Obama signed the Lilly Ledbetter law, it's not always true that women get paid what they should get paid for the same job that the guy is, much less at the same time. It's really tough. Oh boy, we can keep going, but we're not. We're going to sign off, say goodbye, come again, send me your favorites so I can bring them on. And I have a lot of great women and men to share with you coming up. It's been wonderful. Goodbye now. And thanks again. Bye-bye.